Hi, it's Michael Chapman with Active8me. In today's masterclass, we're going to cover something that I often get asked about, which is running gadgets and technology with our runs. So we're going to cover watches, foot pods, headphones, as well as headlamps as well. So those 4 key elements. So let's start with watches. So when we're purchasing a watch, we want to ask ourselves 2 questions. What is the data or the information that I want my watch to give me? And how much money am I willing to spend to get that information? So in regards to watches, an entry-level lifestyle watch is going to cost us around about $150. From there, our mid-range watches are going to be about $300. And then progressing from that, watches that are going to give us a lot more data are going to be $450 or above. So in regards to what most watches give us in terms of data these days, we can see that they have pace, distance, a GPS function, some pretty basic heart rate on our wrist, as well as GPS tracking. So these are the basic features of most watches. So when we get into the high-end watches, we're purchasing something based on the more data that we have. So they're going to track things like multiple sports like swimming and riding. They're also going to have some navigational features like a breadcrumb feature, which allows you to go out on a trail run and also track your run back to the starting point, which is really useful, as well as some altitude as well in your runs. So this is what attracts that higher price range. So now you've got your watch, let's talk about how to use it properly. So firstly, we're going to talk about the amount of data screens that you actually have on your watch. You can put multiple data screens on at the same time. I actually only use 3. And so that is to make sure that when I'm actually out there running, I can still see the numbers that I want. Also theming your data screens. So for one screen here, I have lap time, lap pace, and lap distance, as opposed to overall pace, overall time, overall distance. So that's our data screens covered. Next is when we actually want to do a manual lap. So this is when we push the button ourselves. This is when we're doing intervals like 400s or 800s, or when we don't know the actual distance that we're running. So that might be from our house to the end of the street. So this function allows us to actually track different laps throughout our run and finish our run or finish our cool down and then assess the data a little bit later on. So that's a manual lap. Let's now talk about an automatic lap. So an auto lap is something that we set up before our run that allows us to track our pace at certain points throughout our run. So setting this up to be either a kilometer or a mile is a really good start. When we see a lot of athletes out there in a race that check their watch at the same time, usually this is an auto lap function that we see. So from our auto lap function, then we can progress to what are called alerts. So alerts aren't necessarily useful for all of our runs, but they can be really handy for our longer runs. This is really good for a nutrition strategy, and setting a time of around about 20 to 30 minutes gives us a prompt to either eat some food or take on some water, and that's outside of the pace that we're running or how far we're running. So alerts can be a really handy tool for your nutrition strategy. So now let's talk about foot pods. So a foot pod is a small little gadget that goes onto our shoe that can track our cadence and our power in our runs. These can be useful when we have indoor sessions outside of what we usually use through GPS. So on a treadmill or on an indoor track. They're also useful to get a little bit more data from our runs, but they are seen as a bit of a cherry on top. So if you're just starting out, focus more on things that are attainable to you, which is probably more so your watch data. So next we're going to cover headphones. So headphones are a great way to actually enjoy our runs a little bit more with our favorite music or a podcast as well. So what are we looking for when we want to purchase our headphones? So firstly, we want them to fit securely so that they're not falling out. There's nothing worse than our headphones falling out or us trying to find them midway through a run. So there's actually different types of headphones that we need to be aware of in their design for our runs. So we've got in-ear headphones like the Apple AirPods here. That's an in-ear headphone. Then we've got what's called earbuds, like these Jaybird Vistas that sit inside the ear as well. And lastly, we've got a hooked headphone, which are like these Plantronics here. So this gives a little bit more kind of stability in our run, and they're more likely to be secured. So secondly, we want some good sound quality, but also safety. So a lot of headphones nowadays actually have noise cancelling abilities. This is great for things like conference calls, but when we're actually out there on a run, especially if we're road running, we need to make sure that they have the ability to turn off noise cancelling. So most do nowadays, so make sure that's a feature of the headphones that you're going to be purchasing. So our last point on our headphones is making sure that they're either weather or water resistant. This is often overlooked when we're purchasing headphones. And the thing that we need to keep an eye out for is an IP code or an IP rating. So the IP code has two numbers attached to it. The first relates to the amount of dust resistance that it has, which isn't as important in our runs as our water resistance. Our water resistance, our second number, is the one that we want to focus on. So what we actually want in a headphone is something that starts at IPX4 or above. The X relates to no dust resistance at all, which is completely fine. Our 4 is the number that we want for water resistance. So for instance, these Apple AirPods are an IPX4. That's what we want to at least start out with. Whereas these Jaybird Vistas are an IP68. So these are much more hardy, and you can probably do most of your runs with these. The reason that these are so important is because when we're out there and it might be raining or we're sweating a lot, the IP code is what's going to protect our headphones from breaking. So moving on now to headlamps. Headlamps are often overlooked when we're purchasing run gear, and this actually allows us to increase our runnable hours throughout the day, especially in those darker winter months. The first thing we're actually looking for is brightness in our headlamps. So brightness in our headlamps is actually measured with something called lumens. So lumens range from about 40 to up to 900 lumens. So this is the amount of brightness that we have in our headlamp. So something like this, that's quite a small headlamp, this is probably 40 or 50 lumens. These are fine for your kind of low light environments that may be a road run with street lights available as well. So the other end of the spectrum is this Petzl headlamp. So this has 900 lumens and it's all packed into about 100 grams. So this is actually a really good purchase if we're going to be doing early morning runs or any night runs at all. So that's our brightness. And if you've been tracking along with our IP codes, this also has an IP code of IPX4. So next up, we're going to talk about our burn time. So how long is our headlamp actually able to stay on for or give us enough light throughout our run? So our burn time, you want to make sure that our burn time is actually longer than what our run is going to be. Anything that's above 2 or 3 hours with our headlamps is going to be completely fine. And obviously a lot of them have either rechargeable options or they're going to have a battery pack on the back of it. So a really good tip with headlamps is make sure that you try them out the night before you go out for a run the next morning. There's nothing worse than making sure all your gear is sorted, but you don't have any batteries in your headlamp, and therefore it really affects your run. So lastly, in regards to that, that's us being able to see. Now we're going to talk about people actually being able to see us, especially if we're road running. So a headlamp is a really good start that we're able to be seen throughout that. Another good option is to have reflective clothing. So things that actually reflect off of car lights. So this helps us to be seen and is a good safety feature. Also, trying to find lights or things that clip onto us that allow us to be seen at night. So again, reflective or having those lights. So this is another really good safety feature for us being seen as well. So that's a deep dive into our running gadgets or technology that helps us to progress with our running as well. So make sure we find a watch that has the right data that we want. We're trying to find headphones that have an IP rating of IPX4 or above, and trying to find a headlamp that has lumens of around about 100 or above so that we can increase the amount of runnable hours that we have in a day. So now you're all set to be running with your run gadgets, so get out there and enjoy your sessions.